Hello, everybody. All right. So this is number two. What is it number? I forgot which number it was. 226, I think, or 216. Uh, let's take a look. Let's see. 226. All right. And this is going to be our first time having a theme. And the reason I'm introducing themes is because sometimes you guys don't want to ask questions, and that's all right. I don't want to pressure you. So, if you have other questions besides what we're talking about, then you can feel free to ask. But hello, Jeffrey. And so, yes, the theme this week is uh, uh, finger technique, trumpet finger technique. And hello, Seppo. Nice to see you. Hello, Larry. And so, let me give you my take on finger technique. Depending on the stage that you're at, if you're a beginner, finger technique, hello, just, how do I practice speed finger playing? Okay, well, that's what we're talking about. Very good. If we're talking about to beginners, a lot of times finger technique is just about the placement of the hand. Okay, so I like to tell the students that the knuckles, and I'm talking about these knuckles, these knuckles here are supposed to be over the valve tops. Okay? That's what I like to tell people. Now, does everybody do that? No, not everybody does that. Do people play all right like this? Yes, people play all right like that. It's just better. Uh, so that's the first step. I feel like I'm about to lose my voice. Um, that's the first step, is that we want to have our hands in the right position. Now, there are finger technique books out out there, and my stance on the books is that they are fun. Do them if you like that kind of fun. I'm a trumpet geek, so I consider that kind of stuff fun. But I also practiced that stuff for a long time, and I don't think there's a lot of value in it. I really don't. Uh, I think the idea is if you can do the stuff that's in that book, then you now have the technique to do everything else, right? Because those are the hardest fingerings. Um, the problem is, and I feel the same way about everything that divorces itself from the music. The problem is that the finger technique that we need is connected to the music. And I'll go as far as to say that if you have uh, the tonalization studies and the arpeggios, if you practice tonalization studies, if you practice arpeggios in tonalization fashion, you have all the technique you need. Okay, so that's my uh, big contribution to that subject. So, if I'm answering the question, how do I practice speed finger playing? I say don't divorce it from the music. Okay. Uh, practice the so for example, we see that video of Ulla Antonsen, right? Ulla Antonsen playing the I want to say Neapolitan. Is that correct? What makes me say Neapolitan? And you can see that his fingers are going crazy fast, right? Napoli. No, it's not Neapolitan, it's Napoli. So I'm going to copy that link and put it in the chat. So yeah. Now, that kind of fast playing is a little different. I will admit, that kind of fast playing is a little different from the, getting the technique from scales and arpeggios. That's a little bit different because of just how fast he's taking it. Now, there is a technique for practicing fast. Now, let me say this before we get into that. Because the key, just like the key to playing high is practicing low, the same thing is true. Now, not saying that when you practice low, you automatically learn how to play high. But the difference between the middle register and the low register is the same as the difference between the middle register and the high register. So when you learn how to play low and the middle register, you are also learning how to play high. And it's the same way with playing fast. The slower you practice, the more capable you become of playing fast. So let's get that out of the way first. Slow practice. Boy, I'm really losing my voice. Slow practice leads to fast performance. Oh, when shall I see Jesus? In my next video. Okay, we'll see. Let me look that up. Okay. I'll look that up, see if I can get it. All right. So there's a sequence of rhythms that you can apply to any piece of music. You could also do scales, but I'm not into that. Okay, I like the scales to just be. But yes, you can apply these rhythms. Now, the first rhythm. Let's say I do. No, I'm going to apply it to a scale now, just because I don't want to pull a piece of music out. So, but we wouldn't, like I said, I wouldn't normally do this on a scale. So this first one is called the quick note method, okay? And you put a fermata on the first note, play the second note as a grace note, then a fermata on the third note. The fourth note will be a grace note, fermata on the fifth note. And you do that over the period of the notes that you have that are so fast. And in the past, I would just have people repeat that a few times. I'm really sold out on this 10 times thing now. I think 10 times, you know, scientifically, when you read the neuroscience, they say 7 times. I like to have a margin. So you repeat something 7 times and it sticks. Okay? I like to have a margin. Now, let's talk about things that would make it not stick. If you're repeating 10 times and it's not working, the chances are that there's a couple things that they all have to do with what's happening in your head. The first thing I would look at, if 10 times doesn't work for you, the first thing I would look at is whether or not you're practicing too fast. In this case, maybe you're making the fermata too short. But right now, I'm just talking mainly about the 10 times thing in general. If the 10 times thing is not working, there's a good chance you're practicing too fast. Now, perhaps you're practicing slow enough, but you don't care so much about how good it comes out. Once again, something happening in your head. I have discovered over the last 5 to 10 years that all of the best practice techniques fall apart if you don't care how good it is. I'm going to say that one more time. Or another variation of that. All the best practice techniques in the world will not work if you're not even aware of how well you're playing. So those are two different things, but they're both the same problem. Because if you're unaware of how good you're playing, you might think it's wonderful. And therefore that goes to that I don't care thing. If you think it's wonderful. Now, here's the flip side of that. There's some people who think everything they do is terrible. That's why you have to have parameters to decide what's good and what's not good. Okay? So yes, we're getting back to the subject. We want to do that exercise over the passage that you're trying to practice 10 times. 10 times while paying attention and caring about how good it is. Okay? All right, so the second step, that's just the first step. Now you're going to take the notes that had fermatas and put grace notes on them, and the notes that were grace notes, make those fermatas. So, so that's the second step. And once again, you would do that passage 10 times. You want to make sure that the grace note is fast enough for a grace note. We want that grace note to be actually faster than your final tempo. Okay? We want it to be faster than your final tempo. Then we do what I call the changing rhythms. Did I call it? No, that other one was quick note. Now we do the changing rhythms approach. And we take 4 notes, put it in 3 so that you have 8th, 8th, 16th, 16th. 8th, 8th, 16th, 16th. And you want to do that fast enough that the 16th is as fast as what you're trying to play, your goal tempo. Now, like I said, if you're doing that and you're making mistakes, you're going too fast. And let's talk about that too, because I do believe, sorry about that, I do believe it's okay. Let me turn on some light here. Oh, they're all unplugged. Let me do that one. So I figured out what was making, there we go. I do believe that you can mix different practice techniques or start one, take a break from it and do another one and then come back again. So if you can't do that third stage fast enough without making mistakes, you can take the metronome and insert the metronome method at this stage. Practice that third stage real like half tempo and creep the metronome up until you get where you're trying to go. All right, so yes, that's the first rhythm. The second rhythm, you now do 1/8, 2/16, 1/8. Okay. Same deal. Same deal. Everything I've said up to this point applies to this too. Then the last one. The last finger change rhythm is 2/16, 2/8. Once again, 10 times. Once again, making sure that you're playing it correctly. If you're not playing it correctly, you're probably practicing too fast. Okay? Sean says, can you play an example of the tonalization studies, how slow you might play them? Now, of course, this changes depending on which scale I'm playing. But let's say it's not a scale I'm having trouble with. Notice that I slow down, I sped up, I slow down, I sped up. I do that according to which notes I need the most time on. Okay? I sound kind of bad today. I just had the most brutal, the most brutal dialysis session I've had so far. They almost cut it short. That's how bad it was. They said, well, we're going to have to cut this short. It was bad. And I'm actually feeling kind of weak. I think that's why I'm about to lose my voice. Anyway, so yes, it really depends on how. What I don't want to have people think is that there's a right tempo. The right tempo for the tonalization studies is the tempo that you don't make any mistakes on. If you can go faster without mistakes, and it's not like that. It's not an ego thing. It's not a technique thing. You don't get any more technique from playing the tonalization studies faster. You get more technique by playing them slower. Okay? So there's nothing to be gained except for some weird ego nonsense, right? There's nothing to be gained by practicing the tonalization studies faster. There's absolutely nothing to gain from it. The benefit you get from the tonalization studies comes from just doing them. Okay? The benefit comes from just doing them. If you go fast enough to mess up, you are erasing that benefit. Let that sink in. If you are going fast enough to make mistakes, you are erasing the benefit of practicing the tonalization studies. And as with everything else that I teach, these techniques, these practice techniques, the practice method is powerful. But because it is powerful, if you do it wrong, it can make it worse, not better. And the tonalization studies is the same way. If you practice mistakes in the tonalization studies, those mistakes are going to become increasingly more permanent. Okay? So, yes, it's not about how fast you play them. You know, when you go faster, your mind doesn't have time to absorb it. Okay? When you go faster, your mind does not have time to absorb it. So that's a good question, right? That I get that question all the time. How, and in fact, you know, I tell you that you should slow down, speed up according to what you need. The reason that I even say speed up when you can is because they take so long, right? They do take long, and it's kind of a relief of that time spent. If when you can go a little faster, go a little faster, but not at the expense of your progress. Okay? Never, never, ever. So, when I say that it's okay to slow down and speed up and slow down and speed up, it's okay to do that. A lot of people are playing the tonalization studies and all the other exercises for that matter as if there's a metronome. You know? It's funny too because some of them don't typically have very good time. So you have somebody that doesn't have very good time, but when they're playing something that should not have time, it's like right there on the beat. All right, all right. So Seppo says, how do you think about learning to finger passages with the left hand too? I love that. But let me tell you about that. I use that as part of my method as the sixth stage. I teach 7 stages of literature preparation, talking mostly about classical stuff. Um, I teach 7 levels. I'm sorry. I teach 7 levels of, or 7 stages of literature preparation, and the sixth the last stage is to take a break from the song. I actually believe in that. I actually believe, like if you have kids that are auditioning for a contest or something, I actually believe that the last day or two should be a day off from that music. Uh, the the mentality that we have heading into a contest or an important performance where we have to cram all the way up to the performance, that's not good. Okay, that's not good. That does terrible stuff to our psyche and has the potential to really screw up our performance. When we instead take a day off, take 2 days off, we are expressing a degree of self confidence. And remember what my definition is of confidence. My definition is not emotion based. My definition of confidence goes like this: I've done it correctly 2,000 times. I know I can do it correctly one more. That's not emotional. That's a very practical, intellectual form of confidence. And you can try to bolster your emotional confidence as much as you want. It will never equal the simple knowledge that you've done it right hundreds or thousands of times. Your emotional confidence will never equal that. Okay? That's my take on confidence. So, anyway, that's the seventh stage. The sixth stage is what I call over preparing. And in the sixth stage, playing your music with the left hand is one of the things you can do to over prepare. And you know what's funny? We don't actually do that with the students so that if they break their arms, they can still play. But I had a student that right after I taught her to play with the left hand, she broke her arm and went to the contest and won anyway. Once again, that's not why we do it. We do it as a way to prepare you mentally, over prepare you. But because she was over prepared, she was ready, and she won anyway. Um, it was a very validating experience for me. All right. And so, yes, I do believe in uh, practicing left handed. I just don't see it as a regular thing to do all the time. I use it as part of learning the literature, and it is the sixth out of seven stages. One of these days, maybe we can talk about those stages. I have a book that's already finished, but I realized that the language in the book was too juvenile and for the content. So I decided I have to go back and change the language. And that's not fun. Right? That's not fun. I think what I need is someone to, and I'm saying this jokingly, okay? I need someone to pay me to finish that book uh, because that's work. I'll tell you what, trying to change the language on a book that's already done, that's hard work. I need someone to send me like a couple $1,000 so I can finish it. Anyway, what I've done is I've given copies of it to my students so that they can read it. Um, and I tell them it's a rough draft. I tell them about why it's not done and stuff like that. I only do that, if any of you are feeling left out, I only give that book to students that are competing. We only do that with students that are competing. Okay. But it also applies to very, very important uh, performances. Like if you have a community band and you've got a solo and you're going to play at Carnegie Hall or something like that, then we would pull that book out, you know. But usually I only use that book for students that are competing. So you have good questions today, everybody. Sean says thank you. Well, you're welcome, Sean. Um, all right. What other questions? What other questions do we have today? Let me look at this hymn, see what I see. All right. Okay, Larry says, I'm going to send you some hooks so you can hang your paintings and your. That's funny. I'll tell you what, we're this close, right? We're this close to getting those up. Uh, Let me show you my paintings since we don't have questions right now. So here's the first one. These are both paintings of the Scottish countryside. And this is that famous castle. Uh, and so now let me show you the other one. There's the second one. Beautiful, right? When I'm cooped up in the house, when I'm cooped up in the house all day, those kind of paintings help take some of the anxiety out of being inside all the time. I'm not an inside person. I don't know how much of this I've told you guys, but when it came time to choose a career, there were only two things I wanted to do: either be a musician or be a park ranger. Right? Either be a musician or a park ranger. I loved camping, hiking. I haven't been in decades, but I still love it. Uh, there's still stuff I wish I could do. Now that I'm on dialysis, I don't know that I ever will. Uh, I shouldn't speak like that. I take that back. Uh, I did say I don't know. So I'm not speaking that into being. I really would like to go again, backpacking, camping, all of that stuff. Uh, I guess it's not just the the dialysis. It's also the age thing. I don't know. I know there's guys that do it, but anyway. So um, Seppo says, what would be your solution to deal with lifting the fingers from the piston caps? I'm not so opposed to that. I'm not so opposed to that. But that said, my favorite thing, let's put it this way. If remember my saying, all physical work should be for musical reasons. This is one of the most central philosophies of my teaching method. all physical work should be for musical reasons. So if I see somebody that is having problems because they're not putting the valves all the way down, I mean the fingers down, then the what I've always used for that, and I have, right? It's just I don't do a lot of it. Uh, is that whole putting the coins on the tops of the valves? Because if you let go of the valve, it goes away, right? The coin comes off. I've got one penny here. You put the coin on top and play like this. You know what? I think part of the reason why I haven't taught that in so long is because if you get their fingers, their knuckles up over the valves, I think they're going to have a lot of trouble with, you know what I mean? If the position of your fingers comes up over, then this is not as easy to do as this. Do you see what I'm saying? If so, let's look at the posture of the right hand right now. We want the elbow up. I do sometimes like this. That's not a good thing. Right? We want the elbow up, and we want the knuckles. I know I'm repeating myself, but we want the knuckles above the valve tops. And by the way, this is the Eddie Lewis right hand position. Okay. I know that now there are people that are teaching this today. I do believe that I was first. I could be wrong. I know that's kind of egotistic, but I didn't used to see anybody ever doing this. And now I see people doing it all along, all over the place. Um, I do not. I try not to put my thumb here. I try not to put my thumb here. Okay, those are the two standard places for people to put their thumb. You can see in the metal here that I put my thumb on the lead pipe. Okay, and the reason I do that is because I was in the late 90s, or maybe early millennial. I was getting carpal tunnel in my right hand. It was so bad I couldn't open the door. So I retrained myself. I discovered a new hand position based on ergonomics. And I took my hand and took that position. I put the, the pinky over the ring and the thumb on the lead pipe. Okay. Now with that, you put the knuckles high above the valve tops. And now you don't have that problem so much with the high fingers. Okay, so yeah, that's a very important thing to note because uh, that could be the reason why it doesn't bother me so much because if I see someone in this position and they lift their finger up, I don't think that's the same thing as the ones that play like this. Anyway, that's just a thought. I might be way off, but that's how I see it. All right. Larry says nice paintings. So let me tell you one more thing about the paintings. I don't like prints. Uh, I like real paintings done by real people. I, of course, that one that you see in the background up on the wall, that's not a painting, that's a photo. I'll tell you about that too. But anyway, um, I spent about 10, 15 years shopping at resale shops, looking for painting students' work. Does that make sense? So I've got student paintings. A while back ago, I took them all down, and I think the reason I took them down was because now I live with an artist, and I don't know. It's I have someone who in the house that paints better than they do, and it just didn't seem right to have those paintings up on the walls when my wife is a better painter than that, right? Um, so yeah, that's why I took so many of them down. But uh, we took these down, I think, originally because of the painting the wall, and then I just never got them back up again. So yeah, I want to put them back up because I'm spending more and more time inside, and that just drives me nuts. Sean says, "Oh, let me tell you also about this on the wall that you can see on." Okay, so it's to my. Okay, it's to the right. That's a photo of Fort Bliss, where I was born. Okay, that's a photo of Fort Bliss with the Franklin Mountains in the background. You can't really see any of that. It's a 1912 photo, I think. So that's why I have that. Okay, it's not a military thing. It's the mountain. Uh, I'm very attached to those mountains in El Paso, the Franklin Mountains. So Sean says, I know you play Christian music, and I was just wondering if that ever includes sacred music. And if so, what do you think about that? I'm confused. So I did read an article one time that in the Catholic faith, they have what they call sacred music, but it's music that's done the same way every single time for every mass. So like, um, so in other words, it's not just a song, but uh, for us Protestants, uh, how are you differentiating between sacred and Christian? What's the difference in your mind? Because I mean, I've got hymns. Are you saying that the hymns are not sacred? I don't know. I consider hymns to be sacred, so I'm not sure what you mean by sacred. If we're going to go with the Catholic route, like the philosophy that this one guy had about what makes sacred music sacred, um, you could say that the doxology is sacred, sort of, um, using his definition. But I don't think that in the Protestant on the Protestant side of Christianity, I don't think we have a distinction uh, between the I forgot what word they use uh, between that and sacred music, like the hymns and sacred. I don't think so. Sean says I've just listened to a guy named Tim Moak who plays trumpet and says it's sacred music. I think he's probably Catholic. Okay, so yeah, I think that's just a term that's getting thrown around. I think that's a general term for religious music. Now, let me say this. And this is the kind of thing that can upset some people, right? I think that if it's being played by a rock band, it's just a little less sacred. Okay, that's just my opinion. I'm sorry. But if the music is being played by a rock band, I'm sorry, I think it's just a little less sacred. Not not completely. Okay. But yes, I mean, I would not use the word sacred. I would not usually use the word sacred to describe what we call today praise and worship music. Okay, so um, so yes, I do think people throw those terms around without giving much thought to what they actually mean. Okay, so if somebody says that they play, I could say, if I wanted to, that all of my compositions are sacred. I do think they are all Christ centered, even the ones that have uh, more, uh, less liturgical. That's the word I was looking for. Uh, you know, talking about the difference between the hymns and the liturgic music, um, liturgy, right? But no, I think those terms just get thrown around. Uh, what's the now the term I'm thinking of is civilian. That's not the right word, but the non-religious music that I write is still Christ centered. So, in a sense, you could say that all of what I write, even the books for that matter, are Christ centered because Jesus is Lord of my life. And everything I do is in service to Him through the people that God put in my life. I hope that makes sense. Everything I do, from teaching to writing the music to writing the books, uh, playing the gigs, Jesus is Lord of my life. So everything I do is not liturgical, but Christ centered and therefore uh, religious, therefore Christian. Okay? So, but I would not go so far as to say that all of my music is sacred. Is some of it, could you possibly come up with a definition that says some of it's sacred? Yes, you could. But that's depends on your definition. Okay? So Sean says he thinks he plays music that sounds more classical. So, you know, what I think when someone says something like that, what they're saying is that's their intention is to write sacred music. Now, whether or not the Christian community accepts it as such is something different. Okay? Hello, Mr. Brewer. Nice to see you. He says, I think sacred comes from the heart of the person creating or playing the music. Yeah, so I can dig that. You know, uh, there's a lot of references to John Coltrane about how sacred his music was, especially that stuff, uh, you know, uh, of course, what he believed was probably very different from what I believe. So yes, the word sacred is going to mean, I think, different things to a lot of us. Like I said, I would not use uh, right love supreme. I would not use the word sacred to describe my music. Even the hymns that I record, and I'm not saying I'm not casting judgment on anybody else's definition. I think we're all free to have our own application of different words based on our own philosophy. We all have different philosophies. The way we philosophize, the way we philosophize has an impact on what our words mean when we use them. Okay, so to me personally, I can call some of the stuff I do religious. I can call some of it sacred. I mean, not sacred. Some of it is sacred, but most of it not. I can call it praise. I can call it worship. Um, but I would reserve the word sacred to those higher. I don't want to say that. Anyway, Seppo says, you can you imagine in Finland a Baroque music concert scheduled to take place at a school this week was canceled because the program included Handel's Messiah. I can believe that. I can believe that, which was deemed to certain too religious, too many religious references. The news even made international headlines. What is happening to the world? Yeah, I know. But you know what? Let me tell you my stance on that. Because obviously, that's not a problem I've got. And uh, part of the reason is because I'm not associated with any government institutions. I'm not even associated with a church necessarily. I mean, I am associated with a church as not a member, but what did my mom call that? A adherent. I am an adherent at my church. Um, but musically speaking, my music right now does not fall under any authority except mine and the authority of Christ Jesus. So I don't have that kind of problem the way other people would have, right? Uh, but uh, I do believe that this should. So I don't. So our relationship, and pardon me for talking about this in a trumpet. I do think it's related to trumpet, but our relationship to Jesus is between me and Jesus, between you and Jesus. And there's nothing in this world. It's Romans 8, right? Says nothing in this world can take away that from you. Nothing in this world can take that from you. And so we do what we have to do. I'll tell you what, when I first started attaching my music publicly, it was always attached. Don't get me wrong. But when I first began attaching my music publicly to my faith, I was just a little nervous. Um, Nervous in the sense is that I didn't know what was going to happen. I didn't know if I would get hate and persecution and stuff like that. Uh, I don't know why that hasn't happened. I don't know why that hasn't happened. But uh, yeah, when I first, because we're all told like these kind of stories where the program gets shut down because there's, you know, like all the best music from 2 centuries was religious music, right? It's all Christian music from 2 centuries, and if you're gonna have quote unquote classical music, um, you're gonna have trouble finding any of it that's not religious. At least not until the classical era. And even in the classical era, the people were still religious, but there was a degree of commercialism that was introduced during the classical era. So anyway, yeah, So I don't see a link. Seppo says there's a link to the English version. I don't see it. So yeah, I understand the frustration, but I also understand. So there's some people that wouldn't agree with me on this. I just read Timothy 1 this morning, uh, and it was talking about loving the people above us, right? Uh, he didn't use the word love. I was reading this morning in King James version, and it used the word, which I believe comes from agape, uh, uh, long suffering, right? Oh no, I'm sorry, not long suffering, charity, which I believe is a derivative of agape, and uh, we're supposed to love the people above us, and I mean people in leadership. I shouldn't say above us, because Jesus does say that not to be a respecter of persons, right? Uh, but yes, we we're supposed to love, and it's like what Paul said about the weaker vessel, and the people that are elected to our governments today are the weaker vessels. It's like in a democratic society, the weak elect the weak. They don't want powerful people over them. So uh, we're supposed to be the big boy in the picture. We're supposed to be the adults. Does that make sense? I'm sorry, Simple. I don't see any link. Maybe they're being blocked. Maybe links are being blocked. I don't know. I know I can add a link, but maybe they block other links. So yes, that's my take on that. This is a real problem because it can be a problem with the programming, right? Because if you already practiced all of that, now you have to find something else to program. But I'm not one of those. And like I said, I know there's a lot of people that would disagree with me. I'm not one of those that believes that we're supposed to use this as an opportunity uh, for activism. I don't believe that. I do think we should be heard. Okay? I do believe we should be heard, but it should not be in the context of, it should always be in a loving way. Okay? I know that makes me sound like a liberal. I'm not really a liberal, uh, but that's what I believe. So, all right. Karen says, "Hi Eddie, my oiled valves seem to stick sometimes depending on how I finger them. Is that common?" Yes, that's common. Like what we said about the valve fingers the knuckles being over the caps, uh, that usually makes it go away. Now, here's the thing. If you have an old horn, trying to put your fingers in a position that was not originally played on that horn can make it stick. So if you buy a horn from somebody that always plays like this, but you're going to play like this, you're going to need to practice a lot to wear those valves down to your position. And so I know that your horn is a horn you had. If I remember right, your horn is a horn you had in high school. So when the valves do stick, you should try to recall how did you use to finger the valves when you were in high school and go back to that. Now, let me also say this, that it can also be dirt. I don't know how many times I've told you guys this, so I might not have ever said it in a Q and A, but I flush my trumpet regularly. I take it to the sink. I have a nice deep sink. I put the trumpet underneath the faucet, and I put hot water through the horn, and I move the valves while the water's going down. And I've got immaculate valves. The horn is 26 years old, and the valves look brand new. And I do believe that part of the reason for that is because of this weekly, sometimes every 2 or 3 days, rinsing of the instrument out while I'm doing this with the valves. Okay. So, and what happens is microscopic pieces of dirt get caught between the valve and the casing, and that can cause the valves to stick. Okay. Okay, Seppo gives us what we need to, if you're interested in reading that article, I'm copying that now and I'm going to put it in Google for later. Okay. Oh, Jeffrey says that YouTube looks at the links as spam. That's a shame. I'll tell you what, let me see if I can post it. Okay. I'll post it for you. Mr. Brewer says the flush works extremely well. Oh, good. Good. All right, everybody, we're out of time. I am very, very tired. I need to get some water and get some extra in. I'm glad I didn't losing my voice. Uh, and hopefully next time, uh, the dialysis won't be so bad, because I do think it's making me just a little bit loopy too. All right. All right. Oh, that's not the correct one. Okay, I'm sorry. I'll dig deeper next time. Sorry. Um, yes, it's great to see you, Mr. Brewer, Jason. Um, all right, so have a great week, everybody. Have a great weekend. God bless you, and we'll see you guys at the next one. I think we're cool for next week too. Okay. Christmas season is coming, and uh, I can't promise that I'll be able to do this every week. Okay. But we'll see. All right. All right. We'll see you next time. See you later.